if you guys are on YouTube, you would know that Kent is sweating like a man in Hawaii wearing a Hawaiian shirt.
Yeah.
Hanging out with his wife and kids, but none of those are real except for how much sweat there is. It truly is. It's not Hawaii. Hawaii is actually awesome. It's like really tempered.
Wait, what's not real? My wife and kids?
No, you hanging out with them right now.
My bank account says otherwise. Just took them on vacation this last weekend, which, by the way, Decorah, Iowa has a lot of ways to beat the heat. One of those ways was the ice cave. I've been trying to...
Oh, yeah, where the snails live.
I have a little criticism for Decorah tourism. You don't make it very clear on how to get to the ice cave. So after previous attempts, we finally figured it out this year. And we got there, and it was as amazing as advertised. And it truly was like walking. Like you could see, it's like on a hot day when you open up the freezer. You like see all the steam, where the cool air and hot air is mixing. Like you could see that coming out of this cave.
That's pretty cool.
And then you walk in there, and it was so nice. And then we went and waded around in some spring-fed creeks, and it was like almost 100 degrees air temp. But you like step into that spring cold water, and it hurts. It's so cold.
Oh man,
but it's awesome. Yeah, I mean, like right now,
our coffee shop AC unit is old, and it's a little too small for the building. And when I mean a little too, I mean it's like a little too small. So like in the beginning of the day, it's like nice and cool. It feels like a normal building, and it can't keep up by like a degree or two per hour. So by the time we close at 5 p.m., it is a full-blown 85 degrees in there. It is miserable. My wife says she's been getting, she'll fill buckets with water and put ice in them and just, like, dunk her hands in there for a while to try and stay cool. I mean, it is terrible. Yeah. I bet Riley doesn't even turn his AC on.
I set my AC at 75.
Wow.
Which is controversial.
We used to set our heater at 55, and that caused our upstairs bathroom pipe to freeze and burst. Oh. So, because there just wasn't enough heat in the house overall to protect from the really cold winters. Guys, it's hot. We're sweating, so we're gonna jump right into it. Welcome back to the Prairie Farm Podcast, Coffee Time Wednesday. I am Nicholas Lirio, your favorite host, joined by your favorite co-host, Kent Boucher.
Hey.
And your favorite co-host, Riley Rosendahl.
I'm saving my energy for the topic.
Whatever.
I'm sweating, dude. Oh, man. It is toasty. I see Riley sweating. How are you wearing a hat right now? Holy crud, guys.
I don't know. I'm wearing long sleeves for some inexplicable reason.
Yeah. What is wrong with you,
It's a sweatband. It absorbs.
That's right. It does feel. Well, no, it's getting,
we're
getting pretty saturated.
We're detoxing right now.
That's right.
We're getting rid of all the garbage. Well, let's jump right into the question. This week it is from Reed. Reed is a sophomore at Iowa State. And he wants to jump into conservation and would like to begin to introduce some native grasses, forbs, and flowers into pasture to help create more biodiversity as well as help out the ecology of the area. He's wanting to do this into a pasture, so it's a little nuanced. Any recommendations of species to interseed into my pasture would be greatly appreciated. Thanks in advance. I don't even think Reed meant for this to be a question, but most of the interactions I'm having online right now, the backyard pollinator interactions are kind of over. People are kind of done with them. Getting a lot of native. People are still curious about the native pasture mixes right now, especially because their cool season grasses are kind of not producing as much. And it's that time of year where they start going, it sure would be nice to have some big blue stem out here. Yeah. And yes, it would. Reed, great question. Little bit of an issue with the framing. One, what's in the existing pasture mix? If there's Timothy and orchard grass, which are pretty common, those are pretty easy to interseed into. I would even say fescue. It does sod a little better. It's not ideal, but if that's in your pasture, it's not favored by the cattle anyway. But if you've got like brome or, I mean, less common, but if you're in wetter areas of the pasture, you might have reed canary grass. I would
even Kentucky bluegrass.
Bluegrass, yeah, that's true. Those sod over, those are tough to establish things into. And when I say tough, I mean good luck. I mean maybe you might get and maybe you could interseed over and over again some of the more dominant grasses, big blue, little blue, Indian. We avoid switchgrass because if grazed too heavily, it can be a little toxic for grazers. Riley found this out.
It contains saponins, saponins. It can be toxic to like sheep or horses if grazed too heavily in like a straight stand.
That is
opinions vary on dosages and stuff. I'm not a vet, but
the data on
Nick
native
sure
grazing
is just getting darker, except for the seams. We are just pouring buckets of sweat right now.
It is miserable. I won't lie, guys. I love doing this podcast. I'm ready for it to be over today.
He was ready for it to be over before
Nick was Cowboy Nicholas today. He had to go plant.
I was planting. Yep, it was the smoothest, most wonderful field. I love CRP fields that are just smooth as could be. They're my favorite ones to plant.
But old pasture that you're wanting to seed into, not as
smooth. Not as smooth. No. And you can't use like a drop seeder. You probably want to actually drill it in. But again, very shallow.
Yeah.
But what you could do, if you're not worried about money, you could keep putting those dominant grasses in there year after year after year.
And you could maybe do some burning too, if you had enough fuel on the ground.
And then, what I would say after that is then get a burn late May. If you can have your cattle off of it for a couple weeks there, and then that should give a chance for those warm season natives to actually take off. But it's tough. Now, again, if you've got Timothy and orchard grass, those grasses are a great option. Some other ones would be the prairie clover legumes, partridge pea. I would avoid the tick trefoils just because the tonnage isn't amazing for grazing. It's loved by white-tailed deer, but then for some of the other forms, Golden Alexander is an early bloomer. It's easy to establish, so it's easy to get in there. And I'm talking about these easy to establish because we're talking about interseeding, and they are preferred by grazers. Now, some other ones, stiff goldenrod, easy to establish, has a lot of tonnage to it pretty early. It leafs out, stays pretty low to the ground, but adds quite a bit of tonnage. The asters can do similarly. They get quite a bit of tonnage on them. Now, for those, I don't actually know how much they love to be grazed. We are heavily pursuing people that know more about it right now. So we should have some experts on some of these species that we should be putting in.
Species, targeted species.
Yep. But it's a great question, Reed. Those are the species I would stick with, those that I mentioned. There's maybe Ohio spiderwort does pretty well. I've seen it in like brome patches, kind of just by itself, just brome and Ohio spiderwort. And so I've been surprised by those. But those milkweeds do well. But then again, it's controversial. It's basically it's canon that people consider it toxic for cattle. But then Jeremy French came on here and just was very confident that it's not toxic in the long run for cattle. So I don't know. We should have more answers on that later, but we really appreciate you reaching out. Don't forget, if you guys are wanting some free seed and your questions answered by us at the Prairie Farm Podcast, go to social@theprairiefarm.com. Shoot us an email. Reed, shoot us an email. Get your free seed. I will say that we are, just a little hint, we are working on a way where we can have other prairie experts that are more niched or truly experts in their area, where they're going to be able to help interact with you guys more. And you don't just have to take our word for it, because we do know a lot about a few things, but I don't always want to be overreaching and giving people wrong information.
Nice to appeal to the expert.
Yes, true native pasture experts or true prairie plug experts. So anyway, that's a little plug there. We'll keep you in the loop later as the summer goes along. But Riley, I think, has our topic today.
Yeah, so this was announced on June 5th. It was actually published by Ghana's news agency. I
wonder if is that like a...
Is that PBS for Ghana?
Yeah.
Maybe.
I
wonder, it's like a government-owned news agency, which is a dangerous kind of news agency, but...
I'm not going to comment on that.
Someone's been reading too much 1984 lately.
I'm getting drafted, guys, so
but
nerves are up.
Ghana is a country in Western Africa that just announced that they were going to ban styrofoam. they're leaning towards aluminum foil and paper. They've just had a lot of problems with styrofoam. I mean, styrofoam's cheap, right? It's really, really easy to get your hands on, but the ways to get rid of it and the amount of, trash services you need and stuff like that, and just the way that I'm sure everyone has seen styrofoam in their neighborhood, those white plastic containers that blow everywhere and, get caught in any kind of vegetation. And
yeah, when I'm shed hunting, I'm always amazed at how many of those I find in creeks, whether it be a little carry-out sandwich box or like a styrofoam cup or something.
It's like those, and then the plastic convenience store baggies that are what I see the most.
Those are the worst.
Caught in vegetation, any kind of shrub or anything like
and
that.
For whatever reason, only the cups, but fast food cups.
Yeah.
Not the bags. The whole bags, they're more of a papery product, and they seem to decompose. But the cups, man, they're everywhere.
Yeah, it's like they got a waxy coating on them or something that helps repel.
And if they're not styrofoam, it's those like really thin plastic that after like 2 or 3 months, it just explodes.
Yeah.
So you go to pick up this cup and it just blows up in a million pieces.
Bajillion pieces.
The good news, though, I was just looking this up, is that it decomposes pretty quickly. It takes roughly 400 to 1,000 years for styrofoam to decompose.
Pretty quickly, he says.
So that's the good news.
When you're talking geologic time, just a blink of an eye.
It's only 4 long human lifetimes.
You know what we need to invent? We need little robots that go around and take all the trash in the world and put it into little cubes and stack it really high in a pyramid. And then one day, there's only one of those robots left. And then I mean, it's just like, I do wonder that, like, we just are so ready to buy garbage and throw it away.
Yeah.
Not just styrofoam, but just like, I mean, you guys have heard me rant about clothing, like even clothing. My wife and I are doing, for anyone who goes to our coffee shop that listens to this, I guess you get a sneak peek. We haven't really announced this yet, but we just thrifted a bunch of really high quality clothing, and we're going to put our brand on that. Call it good, and it's fun because you get some like retro stuff. But it's like we don't need more stuff. We could not make more shirts, I bet, for like 2 years, and everyone would still have something to wear. Are
the armpits a little bit yellow?
Don't worry about it. Don't worry.
I'm nervous. I'm nervous for your customers.
Yeah, we're just turning those into tank tops.
Guess what I found? You guys know sprint car racing? Sorry, listeners, we're way off. So Tony Stewart was like won the Triple Crown or something. He's a famous NASCAR driver, but he also did sprint car, and he was quoted saying like, if I could do sprint car and make as much money, I would only do it because it's more fun. Anyway, he won. It was a couple decades ago, won some serious title, Triple Crown or something, and I found a shirt of him of like winning and he signed it. His signature was on the shirt, like in Sharpie.
Did you buy it?
Yes, it was $30. Of course, I bought it. I live in the sprint capital of the world. There's, of course.
What did you sell it for? $32.50.
No, that's like native seed margins. I always think it's funny when like farmers come in like, "Oh my goodness, you're raking us over the coals with these prices," and they're like kind of joking, and I'm like, I'm just happy when we're in the black.
I wish that were true, sir. I wish that were true.
I promise it's not. I always joke like if I wanted to get into money, I'd become an Edward Jones rep. I wouldn't jump into conservation.
Yeah.
So anyway, the styrofoam, I don't know. What do you guys think? Should the United States do that? Would that be good or bad?
I find it, it's interesting where you take an invention, right? And you're like, man, that was a really effective thing. That wasn't the problem here. The problem was it's like causing a lot of problems. That's the problem. And so we're going to kind of like make your invention go away. And you don't really see that happen too often, but I think it is good sometimes. And in this case, I am in favor of it. There's certain things that we've created that just are I once heard Ryan Callahan refer to, he was talking about those like hot hands, that you get for in the winter and stuff. And he's like, I just don't like buying garbage. He's like, you're literally buying something that just ends up in the trash can a few hours after you use it. And there's, in our modern lives, there's a lot of things that fit into that category. Single-use plastics, we hear that term all the time. Mm-hmm. But even think of like toilet paper, or Q-tips, dental floss, all these things that we consider like staples, necessity, whatever.
Yeah.
And in some ways they are, but one
I
saw
to
pile up
at the thrift store a bunch is gag T-shirts, like funny little sayings on T-shirt, but they're not comfy T-shirts. So you buy them as a Christmas present for $16. Mm-hmm. They get worn once as a joke, and then that's it.
Yeah.
And I mean, like, we're talking about hundreds of thousands or millions of T-shirts printed with these things. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. It's when you can eventually step back and say, wow, this is. Unfortunately for the companies that they're making their livelihood on it, it's causing us too many problems. So we can't have your product, which is just kind of a weird concept to think about. But it's true. There's some things that we create that are just not good for us or good for the environment in which we live. And, there's a lot of people who'd like to see a lot of other things banned. We've talked about glyphosate, with Chad Gravy and, would it just make everything better if we got rid of it? Then we don't have to make the decision. But then the other question that should always come up and say, okay, if we're getting rid of this thing that we use all the time, what are people going to use instead?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. And so that's the next question here is, okay, if Styrofoam goes away, is there going to be this huge influx of single-use plastics that replace it? If glyphosate goes away, is everyone going to be using paraquat instead?
Yeah.
You don't want that. You don't want that to be the case. And so you have to look at what's the trade-off going to be, and what, if we are making something illegal, what is going to be allowed to continue, and what's the volume going to be for its usage, post Styrofoam.
And banning glyphosate and banning Styrofoam, which actually I'm not in favor of banning glyphosate. Like as a across the board thing, I'm not in favor. I'm also not in favor of not being allowed to sue if you poison people. You got to be able to have some checks and balances there. But so banning those things actually don't solve the problem, because humans, we will still pursue comfort, ease, and consumption unless we fix that part of ourselves, right?
Which is what I'm the biggest fan of here, because I'm sure they don't have all the kinks worked out for this yet, but I'm sure they got a lot of smart people working on it over there in Ghana on how to address the other problems that come along with making such a ban. But I love the attitude behind it of like, hey, we need to make things healthier and better.
We replace, because I don't know if you guys remember, I don't remember this, I was just told, and so I looked it up, and it's a thing, is plastic bags were marketed as better for the earth. Anybody know why?
Trees.
Yep.
Yeah.
Paper bags, we're cutting down trees. So if we got rid of all the...
Now your trees can wear them.
If we got rid of single-use plastic and made it single-use paper, could we even sustain that? Like, do trees grow fast enough? Do pine trees, it'd have to be pine, right? Down in the southeast, we grow a lot of pine trees and pine farms, which are terrible for that land.
Yeah.
Do trees even grow fast enough? Or does it have to be like, maybe it's just better we have glass and we rewash it, Right. Or, but that's tough because we're used to carry out. I mean, we're like a civilization that's starting to be built on not having to think about getting our next meal.
Yeah.
We could just like, oh crap, I forgot about lunch today. I'll just run to so-and-so.
Yeah.
What do we do there? Because they're not. Or do you have like, what would be interesting if you had a really robust recycling system? You know how we do with the bottles and the cans, where you pay. So I pay $2 for that glass container there, but then I get it back when I bring it to a redemption, and like get that incentive, like be incentivized to make it a cycle, a healthier cycle. Well, I think that'd be interesting.
There's already the whole bring your cup, for a place like 7-Eleven had that a lot.
Yeah. My wife and I have been trying to figure that out for coffee. It's tough to figure out. So I hate how much plastic.
Well, there's probably some health standards you have to follow too,
and that's a super tough thing. True. So we've talked about having like a middle cup where we make the drink in something, we pour it into our quote unquote middle cup that just regularly gets sanitized, and they take it and put it in and like giving a discount.
Yeah, Nick uses the bottom of his T-shirt. He swabs that baby right out.
I think this middle cup concept sounds dangerous.
No, it only is good for one drink, and then you have to sanitize and wash it out.
Yeah, no,
Riley's not convinced.
I'm not buying this whole middle cup thing.
No, I think I see what you're saying with the middle cup. I can get behind the middle cup because here's the thing: we got to be willing. We got to be willing to give and take on all of this, right? Nick loves to, when he's feeling extra libertarian, he loves to be like, "Oh, you can't have safety and freedom," at the same time, and he's usually wrong, but in some cases,
it's not safety and freedom; it's guaranteed safety and freedom.
And in this case, I think he makes a good point. It is probably less healthy if everyone brings, BYOC, bring your own cup, but the fact of the matter is, if we want to get ahead of all the single-use plastic cups being out there, we're going to have to be willing to say, yeah, I might pick up norovirus one extra time each year or something like that.
Also, I've been thinking about this. I know that there are scientists working on this way more than me, and I'm just generally thinking about it. I have no data behind it. But you get 99% or more of your health and safety benefits by just general, like, washing your hands, rinsing things out after you use them in terms of food. And you know where the last 1% comes from? Strong chemicals. And we and we enforce that last 1%. We say to the utmost ability that we can make something so that you don't get sick. And I kind of think like I'd take the 99% and forget the chemicals. I would. I mean, owning an establishment that does like consumables and food and stuff like that, you wouldn't believe the chemicals that go on. Like just everything that has to be washed every day and all that stuff. I mean,
Nick's just trying to get more anime time in at the end of the day.
Tired of washing. Yeah. Let's just leave all these dishes out overnight. They would be fine.
What if we just put them in some water? That'll probably be fine.
Some lukewarm
just
water.
Just let them soak overnight. They're just soaking. That's like the classic. That's the classic dorm dishwashing, like procrastination in college. There's always something soaking in the sink. You know what I mean? Because someone's just
all the way up, and
someone's too lazy to wash their ramen out of their stupid bowl.
My wife and I have never lived with
a
dishwasher, and that's like there's always dishes soaking because we wash.
There's like mosquitoes being born in there. And stuff.
No. We wash our dishes till the rack's filled where they're drying, and then we like leave the rest of the dishes in there, and then like the next day I'm like, ugh. And then I had to unplug it and let the water drain and then refill the...
Scrape the algae off.
Oh, man. It's so gross. Guys, it's so hot. I'm trying
One last thing. It is the 25th when this airs. It is a kind of a rally day for...
Oh, that's right.
For... if you're a public land advocate, Backcountry Hunters and Anglers has kind of put this together. And... if you are a public lands user, appreciator, all of you are public lands owners. If you are listening in as a citizen of the good U.S. of A., right now, as they're working through the budget reconciliation, the big beautiful bill, Senator Mike Lee from Utah wanted what's the right word? Allowances put into that bill. So we talked about this before when it was on our congressmen and women's desk, right? Hey, talk to him, tell him to take out the the language on making available for sale some public land in Utah and Nevada. Well, that happened. People reached out, said, "Hey, we don't want the sale to happen." Mike Lee from the senator from Utah. When the big beautiful bill went from Congress to Senate, so from the House to the Senate, he said, "Yeah, let's put that back in." Not the exact the same way, but he wants there to be basically made available.
Was Utah one of the main two beneficiaries of the
previous one? Yes,
I thought it was. So it's New Mexico and Utah.
No, it was Nevada and Utah the first
Utah.
time around from the Natural Resources Subcommittee for the House.
Yep.
And now it's not the exact same thing being pushed by Mike Lee, but it calls for more acres.
Yeah.
As being, and there's a whole list of nitty-gritty details there, but it all totals up to about 3 million acres that would be made available for sale, some for energy development and others for housing is the claim. And we've talked at length with Hal Herring in a recent episode as to why it's not a good way to do things. And another big part of it is they're using this. We want to help pay down federal debt by selling off some of this land, and we've talked about why that's not a good idea either. How we feel that way. So if you feel the same way today, the 25th, call the federal switchboard and ask to be patched through to your senators for your state. And leave a voicemail, I'm sure is what you'll be directed to, and just tell them why you believe that our public lands are worth keeping, and how you want to remain a stakeholder in those lands. I will say this, and I've said this before, but one of my senators that I reached out to actually got back with me and mentioned how they are in favor of states taking over rights to federal lands within their borders. And that may seem like a logical thing, like, yeah, they live there, right? But think about that. You are, as somebody so we're in Iowa, we don't have much federal land here in Iowa, but we have some. And if you are listening in now from, let's say, California or something, you have a stake. You are a stakeholder here in Iowa on that federal land. And the second Iowa would take that under control, you might be allowed to go on it, but you have no stake left in it. And I think as an Iowan, I can understand that that principle very well, because we have very little federal land here in our own state, but also because we have seen land change ownership so much in Iowa. And we've talked with so many people who, we joke, but it's a sad reality. You're from the Midwest, and we talk about the land your family used to own, right? And people have lost access for whatever it is. For me and Riley, we obviously care a lot about hunting, but Nicholas cares about it for other things, hiking, hanging out, doing things with his friends, his weird anime friends.
No. Here, let me put it in a way that, let's say you're not an avid hunter. This is super important. Even let's say every state took over the public land that was in their state, and then they kept it a park, and they didn't put energy or whatever they were going to do. There was no pollution. There was no nothing. You're like, okay, that's a win-win, right? Wrong. Here's why. Imagine a town has a really rich community and a really poor community, and then the rich community says, hey, we're going to put up fences all over our place, and you can only come into this place if you already live in the rich community. That, I want to give you a hint, the Midwest, we ain't the rich community.
Right, yeah.
We're not. And so, and that feels like a metaphor, but I am very sensitive to the economic class that is being formed between the East and West Coast and the Midwest and the South. The Midwest and the South, the South definitely more so. They went through more hardship and are clawing back from more. But the Midwest has really been economically hollowed out. We're not a powerhouse. The East Coast has the strong financial era that they were brought in by Bill Clinton, and then we've got Silicon Valley, which actually was started by Grinnell College, but we don't see great benefit from that. And so there's two economic powerhouses, and it's becoming like rich people live there. And they joke like, oh, it's only $100,000 to buy a house in the Midwest. But like, it's becoming an issue. It's hard to move from the Midwest with your amount of savings to somewhere else.
Yeah.
And so
very true.
Even just from a like keeping the United States very united and not and fighting against kind of a pseudo class system, the public land going to state land is a very small step, but very important step to fighting against that. And that's
and let's be clear here. It's not just now it's, it was federal land, now it's state land. Have it. It's still, you can go on.
That would be best case scenario.
Right.
Yeah.
It'll be sold instantly. It just makes it easier for these places to offload it now that it's only up to the state instead of up to 50 states if it's going to get sold. And they don't want you to be a stakeholder in it anymore. They want it to just be the people living in that state. and that doesn't bode well for the future. And really, to play on, I think Nicholas did a good job there. I look at public land as a great equalizer, right? We can all go and enjoy it in the many, literally infinite different ways that you can enjoy it. And once it only becomes private access, then you got to know the right person or pay a trespass fee or whatever.
Yeah. Or even if you have to pay a big, like I have to pay a state park pass for every state that I'm going to.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right. You know, and I'll also throw this in there too. As someone who follows the hunting community very closely and has done so for quite some time, there's always this concern about anti-hunting legislation. You want to know what anti-hunting legislation is that would affect hunters more than anything is not having a place to do it. Because then there is no reason to have hunting if nobody has a place to actually hunt.
And then you're just Great Britain. We fought a whole war to not be Great
to
Britain.
Not be that, yeah. So, you know, it's something that if there's ever a time you're going to speak up and let your feelings be made known on this, and maybe you don't have those feelings, that's fine. And I guess as part of the podcast wasn't worth much for you. But for everyone else, if you feel the same way as I believe the three of us do here, it'd be a great thing to participate in today. So
I think if nobody cared and nobody reached out, but everybody knew what was going on, well, then that just sucks. That like sucks, but it's fair.
Right.
But if we're not educated and we don't know and we don't give it a chance, or we care but not enough to like make one phone call, you know what I mean? Then it's like, I don't, you know.
Right.
But I won't lie, guys. It's almost 5:15. I'm ready to go to bed. It's about my bedtime. I really appreciate everyone listening. Again, if you want to send in your questions, social@theprairiefarm.com. Oh, by the way, if you love what we have going on, HoxieNativeSeeds.com, Google reviews. I had a gentleman who works in marketing. He's like, what are you doing? You need to do Google reviews. I think we have 4 right now, which is crazy. We have more podcast reviews than
3
we
of
do.
them right here in this room.
Anyway, if you've ever bought seed from us and you like it and you think it went well, HoxieNativeSeeds.com, you can leave a Google review. But for now, we really appreciate you guys. Also, you're going to freaking love the episode we got coming out on Friday. We'll talk to you again next time.